Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the Bauer Hyperlite pads compared to the Bauer Ultrasonic pads. I will also have a comparison of the Ultrasonic blocker compared to the Hyperlite blocker, as well as the Ultrasonic glove compared to the Hyperlite glove, so check those out as well. And I have the video comparing the Hyperlite to the 2X Pro, which will show you all the new features and stuff like that. But this one is just comparing the Hyperlite pads to the Ultrasonic pads. Now these are two very different size pads. This is a medium, this is an XL, so I can't really talk about how they fit differently or anything like that. Can't talk about weight comparisons either because, again, different sizes, but in my opinion, weight doesn't really matter unless it feels heavy on your pad. Unfortunately, I can't use these because they are a store demo set, so I can't bring them on the ice and tell you how that plays anyways, but we're just going to have to wing a few things here. If this content is interesting to you and if it's helpful, if you want to see more of it, please reach out to the manufacturers on social media. Specifically, this would be Bauer, not Bauer Goalie, just like the Bauer account, or reach out to them on their website. This stuff is getting really hard for me to get, and it's becoming a challenge to do videos like this. Very difficult for me to do this, and I was really lucky someone came up big for me with this set, so I greatly appreciate it, just so I can keep making these videos and actually, I think, helpful content. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel and live in the United States, check out the link in the description to Pure Hockey, Pure Goalie, and clicking that link, make a purchase anywhere through there. Gives me a kickback so I can buy the gear and actually do like long-term reviews like the Ultrasonic set. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, check out the link in the description to Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. Everything that goes through there comes right back into the channel so I keep making content. So both of these pads come with the stock stiffness for what the pad itself is. This one is just a regular ultrasonic stiffness, so I think it's like right in the middle. And this one, the new Hyperlite stiffness, is like the lowest setting it is. So if it goes 1 to 5, 1 being the most flexible, this one is a 1, and this one is a 3. Now, you can see that still bends quite a bit, and I agree with you. These out of 1 are still like pretty hard, and I talked about it in the Hyperlite video. But we'll just kind of go over this more. The whole pad itself feels like it flexes more because of how soft the boot is, and kind of the below knee break as well. There's not really a below the knee break, but it does move a lot better, especially with the new piece there. It does move more than what a Supreme pad would, but it's still a stiff pad compared to other things. Again, this is a stock Ultrasonic, but I have to admit I have kind of beaten these curves into it because I wanted to play with it and try it curved out kind of as much as I can. So this one is a bit more used than a straight out of the box one. A straight out of the box one will be a little straighter than this, and it will be a little bit stiffer than this as well. But it's just to give you a comparison. So the one thing Bauer has done for the last 2 lines, the Ultrasonic and the Hyperlite, and more on the Hyperlite than the Ultrasonic specifically, is the new shape. So I talked about how straight my 2X Pros were and how I liked that. Hyperlite is no longer like that, so it's curved, as you can see. Ultrasonics also had added a curve to them, which hopefully you can kind of see here. Instead of being just straight out, now they do have that curve at the top. Obviously, if I flex this in more, it will become even more curved, and it kind of holds for about a game. If you do it constantly, it holds pretty good, to be totally honest. But you can see how both of them have more of a curve to them than Bauer's old pads of kind of this Odin family, where they used to be super straight. From this view, the one thing I do want to point out, because you can see these here, so this is the Stabiliflex, this is the Stabilislide. So I'll show you those in a different view in terms of how much they push out. But the one thing that they did on the Hyperlites is you can see this gap, how much bigger that gap is compared to here. And the reason being is this pad still flexes down with this, which you can see. But you have to move the calf wing out of the way. As you can see, the pad flexes down. It's just the wing gets in the way. The Hyperlite, what they did, obviously they put that gap there, so it flexes more just stock with it getting in the way. Obviously, you can move more if you move that out of the way more, but just stock, there is more of a gap there than what there used to be, so it does allow the whole pad to kind of flex in on that. The other thing that you can tell here is boot flex, where this is an extremely soft boot. Softer than I've ever seen in Bauer pad, softer than the 2X Pro. It feels really similar to Flex 4 pad that I saw before. This is the stock boot for the Hypersonic. As you can see, a lot stiffer. So if we put these side by side, this will do it like this. You can see that boot flex and how different that is between the two. Just like comparison between them and how the lines are really kind of separating apart and being a little more different. Personally, I would have liked to see this be straighter compared to the Hyperlite now. Now that the Hyperlite has a curve, I wish this one was built straight. Just I think that would differentiate them a little bit better too. But I guess most people are going for this curve and like the curve more than just having a straight pad like I do. So the masses are speaking. I guess that's why Bauer's going for that direction. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail of a lot of this pad. I'm just going to do a comparison between the Hyperlite and the Ultrasonic, because you can just watch the Hyperlite video to see what's new on this and what has really changed. But for this spot right here, you can obviously see how massive this is right here. So this is obviously just a shin area compared to the Hyperlite. Supreme has always been thicker than the Vapor one has. This is no different. This is a lot beefier than the Hyperlite. It basically pushes your shin off your foot a bit more, so it kind of changes the whole shape of the pad, just how it sits on your foot. Some people prefer it, some people don't. You can order like Hyperlite skinnier with like I think a Vapor build on Pro Custom. The thing is the boot, and there are obviously different boot breaks. This is a flatter boot overall. This one's a bit more angled. I have not found any difference in sizing. I saw a bunch of people say that this boot angle will change sizing a bit. I wore XL 2X Pro, totally fine. I wore an XL Ultrasonic, totally fine. I wore XL 1X, totally fine. It doesn't make a huge difference between it. I landed the same spot in the knee block on both. Anyways, the boot here is very different as well. It's much thicker on the Ultrasonic than it is the Vapor. You can see how tiny that boot is compared to it. But when you look on the other side, they are they're pretty similar in overall size. But on the other side, it definitely gets fatter towards the outside, as you can see right there. The difference should be pretty noticeable. A lot of the differences on these pads is basically right here, and it's on the inside of this part too. So on the Ultrasonic, Bauer introduced their Stabilislide, which was this block. The Hyperlite has a Stabiliflex. It's pretty similar. We'll go over that in a second. This part though was also a part of the Stabilislide. Basically, this part pushes outwards and this part is flat. You can see that indent with this line. It's not there on the Vapor. So the idea of this, and there's a pillow on the inside, which I'll get to in a second. The idea of this would sit flat on the ice, so you have more stability. Vapor doesn't have it. Vapor went a different route in how this is doing it. This still gets pushed out, and compared to the 2X Pro, this is flatter than my 2X Pro, which is kind of pushed in a bit. And I'll show you why on the other side, but we're going to stick to the outsides of things first, just to cover them. The thing that, again, disappoints me, and these pads haven't been worn enough to see it, but the binding here, which is where there's a little bit of wear on here, is basically the only spot of wear on my old Vapor pads. It still exists here, so that's still the same on that one, which is kind of disappointing to me. But you also see a slightly just different idea on how to do these flaps. The Hyperlite one is much softer and feels like lighter than what the Supreme one was. So once we go on to the strapping itself, they're honestly very, very similar, which is fine because the Ultrasonic took from the 2X Pro, which was really good. And then this is basically the same anyways. They obviously do a few things slightly different. So this doesn't have the Bauer logo on it. I think that's just because this is Pro Custom, I'm not sure. But I do like how the new one has a little tab. That's a nice little feature. Again, super small, but I like the touches Bauer does on things. Again, another thing, I think mine was just black leather, whereas the retail one has some details on it. I think, again, that's just Pro Custom versus retail. I'm not totally positive, but just want to say it. You can see where the Velcro stitching is basically really, really similar. They took some off here. I still think both of this should be available. I don't know why you remove all of that. I think it's better to have options for Velcroing so you can go anywhere you want to get it to fit the way you want. Or if you wanted to go here, you could have just actually attached it there and gone like another strap there to there. Very different executions of the same thing. This one feels thicker and I'm gonna say a bit heavier than what the Aerolite does. Obviously it has binding on it too, but it is like this molded foam, where this is their Aerolite, which is also a molded foam. But this one just feels more airy, and I don't mean the pun, and it just feels softer, and I'm gonna say a little less padded than what is on the Ultrasonic, but nothing major, no worries or anything there. Going on to the inside, just have different ideas of how to do like materials on here. You have the same nylons, as you can see, same pattern and everything on both of them. I still think this is a step back from not using the thermocore that was on the 2X Pro, but regardless, very nice nashes on the inside. This one's a little bit more fancy because it has that sublimated design on there, but they're both very soft to the touch and very nice. Unfortunately, I don't have the Tune Fit Connect on here. This demo set didn't have it on it when I got it from someone. So when I get a set with the Tune Fit Connect, I'll do another video to show the differences between the two. It's much better than what is on the Ultrasonic, which was total garbage, to put it nicely. So the big difference here, and the thing I really love, is this has an interior pillow. So that pillow just attaches like that, and that pushes this part down to flatten it out more and to seal the ice a bit better. You can see this inner wing. The Hyperlite has this balance plate, which is kind of the same idea, but taken to the max. And that will basically push the whole wing out as far as possible. So you don't really need to do this flat piece here. And it should be more flat on the ice than what this design was. So it's very similar in that regards. Actual strapping is similar, but different in that this one generally loops through the calf part right here and comes out this side. I like this to be looser than what I could get like that. So I went on the outside to get a looser fit instead of wrapping it like kind of through, just because, again, I get a little bit looser there. This one is only going to be really tight or more tight because of that option there. If I was wearing these pads, I would probably either try to go to put a loose strap as possible on this, or just take it off totally and just go with this one, just because I've done that in the past with vapor pads, and it just allows you to have a kind of looser fit and it kind of pushes it down more. But you have to try the pads on and see how they all work for different things like that. So going on to the knee area, and this is where the Hyperlite is different but the same from the Ultrasonic. This is the Stabilislide, which is super stiff, so it doesn't really like go any direction. It has a piece going through it, comes out, and it doesn't move, right? So you have completely responsive pad design. Some people don't like it. Some people think it's too stiff. It doesn't feel great. This Stabiliflex, which is on this one, does allow it to bend a little more. So you can see how I can pull that one out more, where this one, it doesn't really go that far. So it does have a bit more to it there. It's not a ton. The big part they talk about though is in the downward motion. And you can kind of see that just by how close the calf wing is between these two. Here you can obviously see this gap here, and when you push down, the pad goes down. As you can see, there's your Stabiliflex. On the Ultrasonic, the pad there, you push down and it hits right away, so it doesn't move. But it doesn't say that this is really that different. It's just the calf design that's different, because when you fold this down, it really does move. So it acts kind of the same way as it always did. It's just now they made this smaller so it can move down. It's just giving you a little bit more reactive, I'm gonna say, pad compared to what the Ultrasonic was, but also pulls out like this. I'm not going to go into the big difference the pillow makes compared to what this one for sealing the ice on, like right here, just because I'm doing that in the Hyperlite video. So watch that if you really want to. Both of them will have really big rebounds as well. Both should slide pretty well. Cortec has been pretty good sliding in general. It's not the best. It's never the best of sliding, but it's always really good. And the ice conditions, the worse they get, like it stays pretty consistent, where a lot of the good sliding pads, like my Brian's Optic and stuff, the worse the ice gets, the worse their sliding gets. So this one does a pretty good job of like being consistent all the way through. So the boot is one of the last remaining big differences between these pads. I'm really curious to see if the Ultrasonic stays with this or if it goes to a more flat design. Most companies are going to the flat design. By all means, this was a pretty flat boot. It does have that channel, but it's relatively minor, but you can see it has depth through it and it does go down and up. Whereas the Hyperlite is basically flat all around. Again, a little bit of a channel out here, but the outside is totally flat. This is less of a channel that was on 2X Pro as well. So that is one of the bigger differences now as well. More pads are going to this style just to get the pad up off your skate so you can kind of cheat. Honestly, it's one of the big things is so NHLers can cheat with thigh rise height, but it also creates a more mobile, like allows you to be more mobile and active because this pad doesn't hit the ice sooner, so you can be more like active within, doesn't get in the way. But that's about it. Toe ties are the exact same. Well, these ones are, right? Which is just the elastic Velcro toe ties, and that's it. So that is it for this video on the Hyperlite compared to the Ultrasonic pads. If you thought this video was interesting and helpful, it would be greatly appreciated if you reach out to the manufacturer and let them know. That would be like Bauer on Instagram and social media, not Bauer Goalie, just the Bauer account, or contact them on their website. Getting this set of pads was really hard, and someone came through in the clutch for me, so I greatly appreciate it to you know who you are. But it's getting harder for me to get stuff to do content on, like these snapshot reviews and talk about them. I have to buy more gear in order to do all these videos, and that's Honestly, there's just too much, so I can't get to it all because it's way too expensive. If you want to support the channel and you live in the United States, please check out the link in the description to Pure Hockey and Pure Goalie. Clicking that link, making a purchase gives me a kickback so I can buy gear and make content like this, but also use the gear and do real reviews and not just snapshot reviews like this one is. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, check out Patreon and buy me a coffee. Links are in the description. Everything that goes through there comes right back into the channel, so I keep doing this stuff. I'm kind of losing my ability to get this stuff and to talk about it without buying it outright. So that's really difficult and it would really help out. Thank you very much for watching and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.